for your work, Fiona, for the outline at the beginning, John. And we'll now go to item 12. We need to maintain our quorum, members. Remember, we said we would go to the end of business. And we're losing another one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is anybody else planning to leave? Okay, so just want to check. We've got private plan changes and we are at the deadline.
How many? Just one more.
So I'll just... We've got 3 more. Let's go to 12, item 12. And who's introducing that? John again?
Is that a battery issue? Oh, here we go. All right. Just very quickly, this private plan change request relates to some land in Epsom. It's the Southern Cross Hospital. They're looking to rezone the land that they own from mixed housing suburban and mixed housing single house, so from residential to special purpose healthcare facilities and hospital zone. They're also seeking to remove a special character overlay and amend the transport provisions. So that's as set out in paragraph 1 of the report. We do have a map to just pull up if Kalinda or Sandra have that available.
Sorry.
Again, we are recommending to accept the private plan change for similar reasons to the previous item. We don't believe there are any grounds on which it could be rejected. We don't recommend it being adopted, and we don't believe it can be treated as a resource consent application.
Thank you, John. I'll move acceptance of the private plan change. Do I have a second, please? And the Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Questions at this stage, members? Questions? Go to debate. Anybody who'd like to speak to this, please? Councillor Walker.
Yeah, I'm relatively familiar with that site. I used to bike past it.
Speaker, please.
So I've just got a question around the trees on the site. Some of them were significant. I don't know how many of them are protected, whether any of them are scheduled or not. So I just raised that issue.
So just had to confirm there are 2 scheduled trees. They're not proposing to have those removed from the tree schedule.
And the
impacts on trees, of course, would be a detailed merit assessment, but in terms of the facts, there are scheduled trees on the site too, and they're not proposing to remove them from the schedule.
And the homes on Gillies Ave and the hospital itself that's been there, well, ever since I remember, and a long time before that, is the hospital, the old building there, scheduled at all?
The building isn't scheduled, but some of the residential properties are within the special character overlay.
Sure.
The plan change seeks to remove that. If that was successful in a hearing after submissions and evidence, and the hearing commissioners agreed that the overlay should be removed, if they got past that, then the houses could be demolished without a resource consent. But under the current unitary plan, they have that level of protection that the special character overlay provides. So that would obviously be a key issue for the hearings if the plan change is accepted for submissions.
And in respect of view shafts, because this is in the vicinity of Mount Eden, Mangawhau.
Sorry, point of order, Mr. Chair. It's been an exceedingly long day. These are all the issues. So this is irrelevant. I will just wait till that sorts itself out. And my point of order is rules of debate, 1.4, irrelevant matters, tedious repetition.
Just a few times today. But look, it is absolutely, as you point out. Are there other speakers on this, please? There being none, put it to the vote. All those.
Mr.
Councillor
Chairman,
Fletcher, you wanted to speak to it?
I don't wish to be repetitive. I have already made some concerns in the previous matter, but in the interest of consistency, I will be voting against the officer recommendations for those issues that Councillor Walker has kindly repeated, but this is a matter that you heard from the local board on. I would hope that others can join me in opposing this.
Councillor Casey.
Lest my vote in favour be taken as assent for this plan change, it isn't. The advice from the local board chair was to vote to accept it and then make a very strong submission on behalf of the council and the local board against it. So I don't want that taken out of context. Thank you.
Put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. No. Declare that carried.
Both recorded.
We're recording Councillor Fletcher against and Councillor Wayne Walker against. Thank you all. And now we'll go to item 13, which is a private plan change lodged by Woolworths at Conifer Grove, Waiata Shores really, in Takanini Manurewa. And John, would you?
Sanjay is the reporting planner on this one. But the land is the land with the red boundary up there. It currently has a residential zoning. It was, I think, previously owned by Fletcher Residential. Fletchers are doing the Waiata Shores residential development next to it. It's now owned by Woolworths New Zealand, and they're seeking to put a local centre on the land, which would be a big challenge under a resource consent pathway. So they are seeking that the unitary plan is amended to rezone the land from residential to local centre to provide for the local needs of the emerging local community and the existing community. So again, we're recommending that it is accepted and not adopted or rejected or treated as a resource consent.
Thank you. Councillor Newman, would you like to move? Not really. Moved by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Hulse, noting it's supported by the local boards of Papakainga and Manurewa. I'll put it to the vote then. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Declare that carried.
All right, the fourth plan change is relates to Smells Farm in the Northcote area. Ewan Patience is our principal planner reporting on this one. He's been working with Smells Farm as they've developed their private plan change for quite some time. It has been to the local board recently, and the resolution is included on page 253. So they are recommending that it should be accepted. And essentially it looks to provide for the tall residential towers or mixed-use towers. They could be office, they could be a mix of office, residential, and some street-level retail, which is really taking Smells Farm into the next generation from being a 1980s office park into something a bit more interesting, right next to public transport. And sorry, that's sounding a bit too supportive on the merit, so I'll step back from that. But on a course assessment, we don't see anything that's fundamentally at odds with Part 2 of the RMA. Submissions and a hearing will determine whether it should ultimately succeed.
I'll move that one. Do I have a... Ewan, would you like... I'll move it. Yes. Do I have a second, Deputy Mayor? And Ewan, did you want to say something further?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. If we could just add the words as set out in attachment F. So after the brackets, operative and part, just to clarify that it's the changes that are specified in attachment F that are what are being accepted for processing.
That's consistent with the other reports, so apologies we didn't spot that, but thanks, Ewan.
Don't have any speakers on the list, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Declare that carried. Thank you, Ewan. 16.
15.
Sorry, 15. Skip my pages here. Thank you. No, I'll just deal with the others. Can we to Member Namani and particularly...
I've texted Member Henare and he's on his way up.
He's on his way up. Okay, I think we'll go to the others. We'll go to 16 first, please.
All right, so Warren McLennan, our Unit Manager for Northwestern Islands Planning, and I'll hand over to Warren because he's been dealing with this one over the last couple of months now.
Thanks, John. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last October, you approved a council plan change to limit urban activities within rural areas.
He's on 15, is he?
However, that meant that Papakainga was therefore changed in activity status from discretionary to non-complying, and concerns were raised by the IMSB members as a result of that, and yourself and the Deputy Chair and the Chair of the IMSB met on a number of occasions in order to work through and come up with these resolutions. And so the first step is that the first resolution is that that's not the resolution. No.
To clarify, we actually are we are on item 15. I introduced item 16 because I was waiting for a member to come back who had signalled member Henry needed to be downstairs. He's here. So we're actually on item 15, and the recommendations before us are the item 15 recommendations.
Right. So the first one is because the rural activities plan change is in train at the moment, it may well be that there are submissions to that plan change which enable a decision to be made within scope to enable Papakainga to remain as discretionary in the rural area. If that doesn't happen, this resolution B, or recommendation B, suggests or proposes that a plan change be initiated relating to Papakainga to prepare a draft plan change to achieve that same outcome. Now that will obviously be, because it's a rural area, it will obviously be a topic which will have a considerable number of safeguards in order to ensure that we still retain a compact city, but that we provide for Papakainga housing on ancestral land, whether it's Maori owned or whether it's general land.
Thank you, Warren. Now, I'm just by way of background that Warren's given the background that myself and Councillor Hills were asked by this committee to take another look at the provision of Papakainga when we were looking at finalising the notification, I think it was, of the rural activities plan change. So we did that. We had, I think, 3 meetings and a lot of emails. I do want to acknowledge the support of the IMSB planner, Catherine. Second name slips me at the moment. Catherine Taylor. Just some great inputs, and the chair of the IMSB particularly as well, and that's David Taipari. I think we've landed in a very good place here, and I'm just really grateful for the real collaborative embracing approach on this from the Independent Māori Statutory Board. I invite the member Tauhenere to move the motion and speak to it.
Thank you, Chair. Kia ora. And my personal gratitude to the Chair and the Deputy Chair for their mahi with our Chair, David Taipari. Really, it's just an issue that's been caught up, I suppose, in unintended consequences of something else. And there is a way through it, and this is it. And we may even get down the track to, we may even codify it in our unitary plan as it is with Māori land in the Ture Whenua. But that's down the track, and but at least we're aware of it. At least we've got a team of people to be able to move it forward, and so I gladly move the resolutions.
Thank you, Member Henry. Are there other speakers on this want to acknowledge IMSB member Glenn Wilcox with us as well. There being no other speakers, put it to the vote. All those in favour of the motions A and B say aye. Aye. Contrary, no, and declare that carried. Can we record that as unanimous, members? We will do so. Thank you. Thank you, Warren. Now we go to 16. Jasmine is presenting on item 16.
Yes. Good evening. So we've resolved one of the two appeals to Plan Change 4. Plan Change 4 was a plan change, an administrative plan change that sought to correct technical errors and anomalies in the Unitary Plan. And through a couple of months of discussion with Pine Harbour Limited, we've now come to a consent order. And we're here before the committee today to approve further parts of Plan Change 4 as they relate to the consent order on the appeal as identified in Attachment A. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is relatively straightforward. Do I have a mover? Councillor Hulse, thank you. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Moving the A and the B. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Declare that carried. Jasmine, thank you.
Thank you.
Now the summary planning committee information, of course we don't normally have, well, we don't have an officer to speak to these, so I'll just move this procedurally. Moved Councillor Simpson, and you're seconding it, Councillor?
No, I'm not seconding.
Okay, I'll second. Thank you. And speaking turn from Councillor Walker. Microphone, please.
Item 17, Attachment E. The subject is the update on the venue development strategy and stadia. And I want to express publicly my concern, particularly around the engagement with key stakeholder contacts to obtain their response to the venue development strategy, against a background where there is no business case for Collindale Park, there is no business case that I have seen for the facility for New Zealand cricket at Western Springs, against the background where the cost that we have at this point is $91 million, and against a background where my understanding from various sources indicates to me that there will be substantial operational losses, certainly from at least the New Zealand cricket component of that facility, and my concern, given that the trust deed of RFA, which is a charitable trust and makes mention of the regional provision of services, is effectively subsidising a national code to the extent of probably $100 million plus, together with operational losses, together with a consequent decision at Collindale Park, which is likely to be of the order of $40 to $50 million, which, as I mentioned, has no business case. And I refer you to the findings.
Can I just interrupt?
I'm going as quick as I can.
We're just receiving these papers.
And I am wishing to put on public record my concern about behaviour that, frankly, would be described as reckless, and I refer to the Mainzeal and related decisions, and certainly, according to the findings of the Sydney Commission into stadia in New South Wales,
I have to interrupt.
Findings 2, 4 and 7
I'm fully aware
would also be...
Can you please stop?
Certainly.
Attachment A does not address what you're addressing. Attachment A refers to the Chief Executive making contact with the key stakeholders.
It's Attachment E, sir.
E, yep. And it doesn't do what you're saying it does. And I accept that you've got a viewpoint, but it's about the motion is receiving the summary. That's all the motion is. We're not debating the content of those particular attachments.
And I bring to your attention the only time that I have the ability to reflect on some communication on the part of, I'm assuming, the chief executive is now. And I am saying that I regard our behaviour as being reckless. And I can substantiate that.
I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Declare that carried. We'll go to item 18. Well, you can just, well, look, whatever the standing orders say in terms of recording. Item 18, please, members.
Oh, that's just an extraordinary item.
There's nothing under extraordinary, which goes to move the procedural motion to. You've just moved it. Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Do I have a second for that, please? I'll second then. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no.